Welcome to the Balanced Hustle podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Sherman, fitness coach for burnt out perfectionist. If you're ready to break free from overwhelm, simplify your nutrition, and make fitness finally work for you instead of against you, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll dive into easy strategies to balance your health with your busy life. Let's hustle for balance, not burnout. Grab a seat and let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today we are talking about meal prepping. And I know that meal prepping is something that I've mentioned here and there on my social media and even in this podcast. But what I don't think that I've done is tell you exactly how I meal prep, how I plan my food for the week, and how it happens. So I want to tell you that today and just explain how my process has kind of developed and changed. I want to say I've been meal prepping for about a year now. I can't remember exactly when I started, but I've meal prepped here and there very inconsistently throughout my life. But only within, again, I believe the last year or so have I gotten really consistent at it. And by really consistent, I mean like it's happening every week. And if it's not happening every week, it's happening, 3 weeks out of 4 weeks in a month. It's not something I like to skip very often. It's something, it occasionally might not happen if I have a week that's kind of, got some different things going on and maybe I don't prepare or just have the time to prep as I normally do. But for the most part, even if I don't do what I would consider my full out prep for the week, there is some type of prep happening. And that just didn't used to be the case in the past. I would just wing it. And as you guys know, if you've been listening, when I worked in agriculture, when I worked on a dairy farm before I went into fitness coaching, there were a lot of days where I did not eat anything until 2 or 3 p.m. Until I got done with work. I might have snacked on a granola bar here and there, but a lot of the days I was getting out of work, hitting McDonald's on the way home. There were weeks I would hit, McDonald's or another fast food place 3 or 4 times a week. And that was largely due to myself not being prepared, not knowing how to prep, being too overwhelmed to even get started. When you search meal prep, you go on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, you see all this perfect, laid out meal prep, all of these perfectly organized Tupperware containers, and they've got gourmet looking meals in them. And it was so intimidating to me for a long time to figure out how to get started with prep and how to do it in a way that worked for someone like me who didn't even feel like I was a good cook or could cook on a normal basis. Hang on, can you hear my dogs? Okay, I had to kick them out of the room. They're basically part of my brand now. Hershey, my little black golden doodle, she's not golden, is in literally every one of my Instagram reels. Phoebe likes to hide behind the scenes, but when I record a podcast, I feel like they are basically part of my brand. But I've had enough. They're kicked out of the room. But what I was saying was that I never felt like I was someone who could cook. I always used to take on the persona of I can't cook. I'm not a cook. I hate cooking. That was what I made my personality. And the more I said that, the more I told other people that narrative, the more I told my husband, my friends that narrative, the more I believed it myself. And the harder it was to dig myself out of it. And now, do I believe everyone has to love cooking or be a good cook, to be able to meal prep? No, absolutely not. I would still not consider myself like a great cook by any, measure of the word, but I have moved up from cooking, Kraft mac and cheese and, grilled tuna fish sandwiches every single night. Like, I have moved up from that. There were, years where I just like, and maybe people are going to laugh at this because maybe this was just something that you just learned growing up. And this is not any type of, slander or whatever to my parents. They definitely like tried to involve us in cooking and things growing up. I was never interested. Like it was on me. I was never interested. And when I moved out, with my boyfriend at the time, my now husband into our first rental, like, I didn't know how to cook chicken. I didn't know how to cook burgers. And again, you can laugh at me all you want, but this is just like, I never had any interest in learning how to cook meat. And meat especially was like a big hang up for me. I never had any interest in learning how to do that as a kid. I was interested in other things, and, meat was a scary one for me because I'm like, well, I don't want it to be raw. Like, I don't want to make myself sick or, my husband sick. And, obviously that's, unless you're, a vegetarian or vegan, that's a basis of a lot of your meals, right? Having, that protein, and, your sides or whatever. And again, if you're vegan or vegetarian, you have other proteins and things you have. But for me, like, all my meals have some type of meat in it. That's how I grew up. And when I moved out, I'm like, yeah, I don't know how to cook that. Like, unless my husband cooks it for me, like, I'm just claiming that I don't do it. And that I'm not a cook and that it's just not happening. So that, hopefully, if you are struggling with meal prep or meals in general, in adulthood, I want that to be reassuring for you that you can start from really not knowing much, because that's how I started. So that takes us to now. Like I said, I'm pretty consistent with meal prep. I'm not doing anything fancy. And it doesn't have to be fancy. So when I started meal prepping, what I did was I just started with prepping lunches, and I would just pick, and this is actually what I still do. I would just pick 2 recipes. And this will also depend on, like, if you live by yourself, if you are, like, prepping for a partner. This worked really well for my husband and I would pick 2 recipes to make for lunch, and I would make 5 of each recipe. And this is what I still do. I make 5 of each, and then, because that makes 10 lunches for us total throughout the work week. And then, because there's 2 recipes, we can kind of, like, go back and forth. We don't have to eat the same one every day. So obviously you'll eat like 3 of one and 2 of the other. Or if you're like me, like you have a favorite, you'll end up eating like 4 or 5 of one. And then your husband's like, I didn't get any of that other one. Cause and like he could take it for lunch the next day, but like he knows that like I have a particular one I like some weeks. And he'll just, like, let me eat it all week. Because sometimes I just get, like, hyper fixated on a certain food. Or a certain, like, lunch. But that's what I do. Is I take 2 recipes. And they don't have to be complicated. So I started out with, like, just teaching myself, how do I cook chicken? And personally, what I found, like, go online, look up some videos. But, if you get some chicken breasts and you like cube them up, like cut them up in squares, or, this is the easiest way I found. Cube them up, cut them up in squares, find a recipe that tells you how to season them. I have one I love in my recipes, favorites on my Instagram, or highlights. Yep, my Instagram highlights. find a recipe that tells you how to season it. And because you've cut it up kind of in smaller chunks, it's less scary that you're like going to have a raw center, right? It's easier to tell when it's done. And honestly, what I started out doing was I would just make chicken. And again, I still do very similar to this. Make chicken, and then I would get some frozen veggies to go on the side, and then I would do something like, if I wanted more variety, I would just grab like a pasta side. I don't know if you know like the Knorr pasta sides, things like that. There's like some kind of like other pasta salad sides. I would just grab that. I've done sides of potatoes, and like that's what it would be. And all I would have to do was like learn how to cook the chicken, and then like I've been making pasta sides my whole life. Make a little pasta side, add some frozen veggies, don't have to worry about cooking those, and like that's like the basis of the meal. And then, the second meal, I might even do chicken also, but then maybe do some rice and like something else on the side. So like you don't even have to cook 2 different meats or proteins. Like you can make it that simple and just like change the sides a little bit so you don't get bored. And that's honestly what I still do. Now I usually do like 2 different types of meat. And I know like I talk about meat a lot here. So if you're not a meat eater, just kind of like think of what your main proteins are. And I'll do 2 different recipes with 2 different types of protein. And that's just how I got started. Was like, okay, this week I'm learning how to cook chicken. Next week I might learn how to cook burgers or something like that. I've done like burrito bowls, taco bowls, because I love tacos, and I'll just like cook up some ground beef or cook up some chicken and taco seasoning, and then, put your bowls, like you'd get a Chipotle bowl if you've ever been to Chipotle, put some corn, put some salsa. Why am I blanking on burrito bowl contents? Put some lettuce, sour cream, maybe some beans, maybe some rice, and you can just put them all in a bowl, and then, heat it up when it's time to eat lunch, and like you're good to go. So I know a lot of people, what I recommend is like start off with 1 recipe. If 2 recipes is intimidating to you, start off with 1, especially if you're someone who can kind of eat the same thing for a few days in a row. Start off with 1. Just lunches. I think when we think of meal prep, we automatically think like, oh my God, I have to prep breakfast, lunches, dinners, like everything for the whole week. No. Start off with the hardest meal for you. Start off with the meal that you skip all the time. And just do that. And then what I went to from doing that was to prepping breakfast. And I'll prep breakfast sandwiches. I'll prep like little breakfast bowls, because breakfast is usually something that I'm kind of grabbing like as I'm starting my day. I don't really like sit down and like eat my breakfast super intentionally, I'll admit. I kind of eat it like as I'm getting going, as I'm walking out the door. So I love having that prepped because I cannot skip breakfast anymore. If I skip breakfast anymore, I am not a focused person. I am not a happy person. I am thinking about food until lunchtime comes. So I don't skip breakfast anymore. And if I have something prepped, even if I know, like, listen, it can be as simple as like buying bagels and buying cream cheese and saying, I'm having bagels with cream cheese for breakfast this week. Like, you don't even have to do anything. You just have to have a plan, right? So then that's what I went to. Lunches, breakfast, and still, I don't prep dinners. I really don't. Dinners are just kind of something that and I'm going to get into how I like make my grocery list. Dinners are something we kind of decide on a night-to-night basis. Like, we have dinners we can pull from throughout the week, and we decide on a night-to-night basis, like based on how we're feeling, how much time we have to cook, how tired we are at the end of the day. That can change so much based on a daily basis. So I like to have lunches prepped. I like to have breakfast prepped or have a very simple plan that I know, this is what I'm going to have. Going to have some fruit, going to have a bagel, something like that. And then dinners are just, what we want to do on a night-to-night basis. So I think the next most intimidating thing about meal prepping and even just cooking in general is the grocery shopping. And I was somebody who used to completely hate, dread, feel so overwhelmed by grocery shopping. Like, just walk into a grocery store and be like, I don't know what I'm doing today. Like, I don't know what I'm here for. I just know the pantry's empty and I'm hungry. Like, I'm just going to wander around and fill my cart until it feels like I've done enough and I've spent enough money and I can go home. Like, that honestly used to be me, and I used to dread it every single time. So, I'm going to tell you how you don't dread that, especially if you're going to start meal prepping. These two things combined are going to save you so much time, save you so much thinking, so much aggravation, and just give it a try, okay? So, what I do is I find a piece of paper somewhere in my house, piece of paper and a pen, starting with the basics, right? And what I do is I make myself a very simple template. I write out breakfast, underline that. Lunch, underline. Dinner, underline. Snacks, underline it. So I've made myself basically a template for my grocery list. And what I'm not doing is just starting to list every food I can think of that we need. I am strategically building my list based off of the meals that I am planning to eat that week. So I start with the easiest things, and then I get into what I feel like are the hardest parts, which for me would be dinners, because that's what we don't prep, and that's what changes on a night-to-night basis. So, breakfast. What's my plan for the week? I write it down. So if I'm going to make breakfast sandwiches and prepare those, what I like to do is make them, wrap them up in tin foil, put them in the fridge, and then heat them up in the mornings. If I'm going to do that, I write breakfast sandwiches, and I write the ingredients I need for them. If I'm going to have bagels with cream cheese and some fruit or something like that, I write that down. I write, again, what I need. Bagels, cream cheese, fruit. Whatever you're going to do. If you like to have a drink in the morning, if you like to have some coffee, a shake, whatever it is, write it down under breakfast. And the ingredients. That's important, right? The ingredients. Then I do the same thing for lunches. So again, I like to pick 2 lunches for the week. So I write down the 2 things I'm going to do. And also what I like to do is somewhere in this, I like to try 1 or 2 new recipes per the week. They don't have to be complicated. They can be something similar to something I already make, and I'm just trying a few different ingredients. Just something a little different. So I like to kind of scroll a little on TikTok, Instagram, flip through a cookbook. I like to try 1 or 2 new recipes, usually in the lunch or dinner categories. So back to lunches. I write the 2 things I want to have for lunch this week. And my husband and I often do this together, so we can kind of ask each other, what do you want to eat this week for lunch, right? What have I made before that maybe you want to have again? Do you want to try something new for lunch or for dinner this week? I write that down. I write the 2 things I'm going to prep for lunches, and again, the ingredients that I need for them, for each thing, right? Then I go to dinners. For dinners, like I said, we like to have something a little different every night. So, again, I write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I literally write the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we fill them in. And usually a couple things are our easy dinners. So I'll admit, we typically have a DiGiorno pizza 1 night a week because it's easy. There's usually 1 night a week where we're running around, where I might have a later work night where I have client calls or something like that. We plug in something easy like that. Another thing we might plug in that's super easy could just be sandwich night, right? Tonight we're having grilled ham and cheese sandwiches or grilled tuna melts or something so easy. Could even be something like burgers. Get some burgers at the store, throw them on the pan, put some cheese on them, they're done, right? Few easy things, And again, nothing we make is super complicated. And then we might have like a couple things that we just really enjoy that take a little longer, like enchiladas, or we've really been enjoying like twice baked potatoes, but those take like an hour and a half to make, right? List out your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you can do this however you want. If you want to prep dinners, and have like 1 or 2 dinners, or just have one dinner if you're someone who's okay with like eating the same thing every day, then just do one thing and prep that and eat it all week. Like that would even be way easier. I just like a little more variety, right? You can tailor this to you. You can start with one thing, get really good at it, and then work your way up. This isn't a process, I'm going to say, that happens overnight. And it's something I feel like we need to do and be perfect at all at once. But it's a process that's a lot easier if you give yourself grace and let yourself build it over the course of a few months, okay? So what I want you to do is to go into this with a plan that you are going to slowly build this, and then you will be much happier with yourself as you slowly build it, okay? It's just like fitness. If you go in with the highest of expectations, telling yourself you're going to perfectly meal prep every single meal, and you've never meal prepped before, you are just going to let yourself down when it's too hard, okay? This is not something that has to be too hard or overly complicated, but it does take some practice. So, give yourself grace, start with one thing, start with one meal, and work yourself up, okay? I started with lunches, and then I added breakfast a few months later. And then a few months later, I was like, okay, let's try to add in some new recipes every week. It's like a muscle. It's a muscle you have to build. So there is no right or wrong way to do it. It's so custom to your life. You might, eat more snacks a day than someone else. It's so custom to your life, right? So there is no perfect way to do it or any right or wrong way to build it. But what I care about most is helping you build it in a way that feels good for you and is not discouraging for you. So that's my advice there. So then I will list out what I want to have for dinner that week, and again, what I need with it. So if we're having burgers, I'm going to write burgers, buns, cheese, ketchup, whatever you want on your burger. And then I do the same thing with snacks. Usually for snacks, I'm having like fruit, cheese and crackers. I like applesauce. I'm pretty basic. You might throw some granola bars, some yogurt, things like that. Cheese sticks. I love cheese sticks. Write out what snacks you're going to want for the week. Now, the next step I've developed, and again, this took me a long time to develop this process. I used to just prep everything, prep my grocery list by just having it in my head. And I was like, this is what I'm going to have for lunches and breakfast this week, and dinners I'm just going to figure out while I'm at the grocery store. I used to do that. I just used to have it in my head. Now, I moved on to prepping my list. And I am really loving doing it this way because I just know exactly what I'm buying. I feel like I'm saving money. And this next part is going to help you so that you don't buy the same things that you already have. Because even though I was prepping, I was walking into the grocery store and being like, oh, I need some cheese for this recipe. But do I have cheese at home already? I'm not sure. I might as well just buy cheese again. And then I get home and I got 4 packs of cheese. And that's something my husband always picks on me about. He's like, we have so much cheese. And I'm like, yeah, you can never have enough. You can never have enough cheese. But so what I do is after I've made my list, after I've written everything out that I want to have for the week and what ingredients I need for it, is I go to my fridge and I go to my pantry and I go down my list and I cross off any ingredients I already have. And if there are multiple recipes that require cheese, for example, make sure you are writing that down. You don't have to get specific, maybe to the cups of cheese or whatever, but if you know what I mean, write down, I'm going to need maybe multiple, things of this ingredient, or multiple things of this ingredient, or like if you're going to need onions, I'm going to need like at least 2 onions so that when you get there, you don't underbuy also. So then you go to your fridge, go to your pantry, and you cross off the ingredients that you already have so that you don't double buy. And then when you go to the grocery store, you know exactly what you need for the recipes. And you're like in and out of there. You've saved money, and you like have a very solid process. So again, start with where you feel comfortable starting and kind of apply these tips and use them as you see fit for your life, for how you think they're going to work for you. But this is like how I got started, and it's okay for it to be messy at first too. Like it's okay for you to try something one week and then it doesn't really work, and then you try something different the next week. Again, this process is going to be so individualized to your life, your schedule, your routine. You may like do all of your prepping on Sundays, or you may be someone who like wants to do it on like Wednesday nights. It's really what's going to work best for you and for your schedule, for your routine. So I hope that this helped you out if you are looking to get into meal prep, if you're super intimidated by it, but you don't know where to start. Feel free to reach out to me on Instagram in the comments. Ask me any questions that you have. I'd love to chat with you, even if you have like super specific questions that are super specific to your life and you're like trying to figure out how to work around it. Whatever it is, feel free to reach out to me, and I'd love to chat about it. It has been something that has helped me so much, and just doing it all at once really takes that thinking, takes that mental load off my plate for the week so that I can just do other things and I don't have to worry about like, what am I eating every single time I'm going to eat? Like what do I need to figure out for my next meal? So it's been life-changing for me. I hope that you try it and it also becomes life-changing for you. And, until the next one, I will see you next time. So I'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Balanced Hustle podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Be sure to leave a review or share with someone who needs a little extra balance in their hustle. For more tips, tools, and resources to help you reclaim your energy and build the strong, vibrant life you deserve, follow me on Instagram at LindsaySherman_fitness, and don't forget to subscribe here so you don't miss a single episode. Until next time, remember, progress is always better than perfection. Keep taking those small steps. They'll tell you exactly where you need to go. Talk soon.